Okay, let's work on project 8.3. I want to explain the steps in this a little bit, point out a few things that I think are misleading in the instructions, and let's try to get you through this so that everybody can get this finished up. This is a pretty important week. It's a big week. Actually, it was last week, but it's a pretty big step to get into object-oriented programming using that in JavaScript. So let's talk about this a bit. I'm going to talk about objects and just explain a few things about objects. An object in programming it's a virtual object. Okay, it's a description using code that is supposed to describe some object in the real world that we want to use. Okay, that's a typical way that a so-called object would be referred to in like a beginning programming class. Now, really, I like to refer to an object in its most basic, or in a very fundamental way, that an object is a variable that can hold multiple variables. Okay, so we're used to dealing with variables in some of our previous projects where you've got a variable that equals a number, 127, or a word like red or green, or some other string, piece of text. Okay, it could be a Boolean, true or false. It could be a decimal, monetary decimal maybe. Okay, but an object is a variable that holds multiple variables, so that the first usually, almost always in a programming class, the first object that you deal with, and this I think is true for this class, is an array, because an array is considered an object. That's why it's usually written with a capital A, A-R-R-A-Y, is because that's insinuating that it's an object. Okay, so that's important to know. There is also a difference. It's important to understand that there is a difference between the code, the section of code that we use to describe or create sort of a blueprint in order to create these objects. That's generally called a constructor function. It's important to understand that that code itself does not constitute the object. Okay, so we're looking at some code, let's just say right here, for a topping. Okay, to create a topping. That is not an object right there. That is the blueprint for it. That is sort of a constructor function for an object called topping. The word constructor is used because that blueprint is going to be used to create or construct a new copy, or what's called an instance of that topping. So that word instance is very important. It's differentiated from the class or the function, the constructor function that's used to create copies of or instances of this topping object. It's differentiated from the actual toppings that we create. Always when we create a topping, it's given a name. Okay, and we'll see that in the it's given it like a variable name, and then the topping itself is assigned with its name and what side it's going to go on, the left or the right or both sides, into the new object of a topping. So it's important to understand that an instance is a different thing from the object constructor itself, and that's not too hard, I don't think, to understand, but it is a difference. Okay, the process of creating an object when you use the function and assign a new instance of that object into a variable name, okay, is like here's pizza right here, and you assign the new pizza. Later in the program, we assign a new pizza into a variable called my pizza. That process is called instantiation, and that's a special word. It means that you are using a constructor function for an object to actually create a new object, and it's a special process in object-oriented programming. Okay, so let's get into the actual instructions here. I want to go right through these, and obviously You know, the first one is always the same. Just download, extract, and get your file set up. The second instruction is to become familiar with this interface a little bit. That's important, I think. Really, you can look at the code, but I think I'm just going to show you. I'm going to do it this way, looking at the actual interface. And you've really got a few controls over here on the left-hand side. You've got a size drop-down menu. You've got a crust type drop-down menu. Those both have IDs and are used to assign those values to the summary of the pizza that we're going to have in our cart at some point when we add the pizza that we make to our cart. You've also got a list of toppings here, and you've got 4 little columns, 4 little items that could be checked. They're radio buttons, so they're mutually exclusive. Only one can be checked at a time as to whether the topping should cover the whole pizza, one half of the pizza, the other half of the pizza, or none of the pizza. So this is a little bit weird to have this option for none of the pizza. I think it's just easier for the book people to build this project and let you see that this is actually the other 4th option. If it's not one of these, it's got to be none. And so they're verbatim showing you this, and that's okay. All right, so let's look a little bit more at this. At that point, once you get a pizza sort of built with some toppings, the next thing is to click on Add Cart, and then it's going to put it's going to add that pizza food item into our cart array, and then it's going to give a description of the pizza over here in this div that is over here. I forget what that one is called. I think it's the cart. Looks like cart box is what that's called. Okay, I may be wrong. We may find that out differently in a moment. But cart box. Okay, so I went ahead and changed the color of this so you could see it. That's a separate div over there. It just leaves it invisible, so you can't see that there's a separate box there. But there is one where the description is going to go into once you click the Add to Cart button. Okay, so we'll deal with that shortly. Let's get back to the instructions and move on here. Okay, all right. So number 3, we're going to start doing some code directly below the object code comment. We're going to create an object literal named cart. Now this is where we go back to the previous video. There's different ways to create use a constructor to create these objects, these instances of objects. So an object literal is kind of like we are creating an instance of an object, and we're also creating the definition for that object at the same time. We're doing it at the same time. So it's a little bit of a shorthand way to create an object, to create an instance of an object. Okay, so I want to get in there and look at that code, and it is right here where we create a cart, and we're using a object literal constructor for that. Var. I use var. I think you can use let here, or const, which is a constant, and I think that'll be fine to use that here as well for an object creation. I'm using var. I'm used to using that. It works, and I'm gonna stick with it for right now. And then it equals really this function. It's sort of an unnamed function, and there it is. It just allows you to create this cart object for each user that comes along and opens this page up. It's got one property in it, the items array. It's empty. It doesn't have any elements in it to begin with. And then it provides a function here. And this syntax is kind of, it's not going to work if you don't use the right syntax for this. Okay, the colon after the name, or the variable name that you're going to give to the function add item. You can call this anything you want to. You could say add pizza item, add pizza pie. You can name that whatever you want to. It's just simply called add item, and it's gonna make use of a function that it puts in here. It's really an unnamed function. I guess it's the add item function, and that takes a parameter of food item, which is going to be our pizza. Okay, once the pizza is done and finished by the user, being indicated by the user, they click the cart, add to cart button, and it's going to run this and add that. It's going to run that function right there. Add that item, food item, and it'll pass that parameter into this function to the items array. Push that item onto the array, onto the end of the array. Okay, so that's an object literal constructor right there. Okay, so let's look at the next couple instruction that we've got. I think is number 4. Create a constructor function. Create a constructor function for the pizza object class. Okay, containing a size and crust property with no initial values and a toppings property with an empty array. So that is this, and this is our big main class that we're creating. This project has 3 objects that it's using. It's using a cart, it's using a pizza object, and it's using a topping object. Okay, so the cart is going to, once we're through with the program, the cart will be able to hold pizza objects in it. More than one if you want to put more than one. If you get finished with one and you add it to the cart, you can, it'll clear the buttons, and you can add another pizza and another pizza if you want to. Okay, the cart object will hold pizza objects. The pizza object will hold topping objects. Okay, so you've got this little bit of a hierarchy through here. Okay, all right, so let's keep going. This is a object constructor for the pizza. Let's check this out. Let's see what it exactly says. Create a constructor function for the pizza object class. Okay, so that's what this is doing. Referring back to the previous video where we overviewed constructor techniques to create objects with. This is either the second or the third one. Okay, I believe it's the second one. It's a constructor object function. Okay, and we're going to use that to add the toppings, to be able to add the to add the size and the crust. Okay, these two are taken from buttons that the user clicks, as well as the toppings. Okay, so we're working through this, and then it provides a method to add this to the cart. Add to cart. Okay, and actually that is going to be where the that's what's going to get run when the user clicks the add to cart button. This up here will be where it adds. I think it's going to add this add item. It's going to add that here, and it's going to add the pizza to the array. Okay, but when we get it into the cart, it's going to show up the description in that right-hand div next to the large pizza image. Okay, now it's got one more function here, summarize, and it's asking for that right here. Okay, where does it put that in? Okay, there's quite a few of these instructions here. This 4 through 7 are really let's see, are all about this pizza object. Okay, so these all work with that object. Okay, and I'm going to talk about this summarize function because that's got a lot of concatenation in it, and I want to make sure I've kind of covered this a little bit as well. This for loop, well, it wants to be able to create a summary of the pizza that the user orders. So it's going to grab the size, it's going to grab the crust from the user's buttons that they've clicked or drop-down menus that they've selected these from. Okay, that's I want to look at that real quick. Those drop-down menus are There's one for pizza size. It's ID'd as pizza size right there. And you can select any one of these that show up, of course, in here. They show up right here. Okay, any of these can be selected. And that will that's for the toppings. I'm sorry, that's for the toppings, and we'll get to that. But these are ID'd. These things right here. These things right here are ID'd. Pete is pizza size and pizza crust, and I want to mention something about that, about the instructions in here, because it's really makes it very difficult when you get down into this summarize method. Okay, this is talking about this dot size. Maybe this is not the exact spot. I do want to talk about it though, because I think it had the wrong variable name in there. Okay, maybe we'll get to it. I'm sure it'll come up for me. I think they called it the pizza size box and the pizza crust box, but it's not called that. I want to find where that actually used that. There it is right there. Set the value of the mypizza.size. Okay, now this is well, this is for the build pizza function, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that in just a bit. Okay, and then the last part of this function to create the pizza is the for loop. Let's get to that right here, to grab the toppings. Okay, to get the toppings out of the toppings array. Okay, so we're going to use those, and this will create a summary that can be used to let the user know what it is they're exactly ordering. Okay, so it's sort of a verification for the user, and then it does a return of the summary, and this is going to come back to where it's called from. We'll show that, and it will put it into the cart box, I think it's called, for that div over there. Okay, so let's get back to the instructions, and we'll go down to instruction number 8, and this is dealing with the build pizza function. Okay, this function builds a pizza based on selections made on the web form. All right, and this is where we're able to actually grab what the user is clicking on and put it into the values. Okay, so the pizza object itself gets its values from variables that we're going to fill from the drop-down menus for the size and the crust, and also from the list of toppings. Okay, we'll get to that. This is where I want to show this to you. Let me make sure about this. Okay, this right here, where it's getting the values for the size and the type of crust. This right here is you couldn't find this because it doesn't. I don't know why that's doing color coding. I don't need that. Pizza size box dot value. There's no variable. There's no ID called pizza size box or pizza crust box. Okay, it's talking about these things in the HTML part of the file, and it's right here. It's ID'd pizza size and pizza crust. That's all it is. There's no box part to it, so you won't be able to find that. And I want to make sure that you're aware of that. That will throw you off. That'll make the program not work. Okay, so make sure you're actually calling the ID. That's the ID right there. And for the look at this, the way they've got this: select ID and name. You see how the sequence of that? It's reversed here. Select name and ID. So make sure you get the ID. They're both the same, but that's kind of funny that they reverse that. That doesn't really matter. Okay, it doesn't really matter, but make sure you get the ID because that's what it's going to grab it. I think that's what it's grabbing it from. Okay. Okay, so we're moving on from there, and and add the selected toppings to the pizza. Create an instance of the topping. Okay, that's pretty straightforward, I believe. I'll make sure I don't have any add to toppings. Okay, here we go. Add the selected toppings to the pizza by creating. Okay, those are pretty straightforward. I think you can follow these. Go to the update cart function. Okay, that's the last thing that we're going to do. I do want to mention this. This is another issue that came up here. Add to toppings. Okay, so we are never told up here in this particular in the pizza object, we're never told to put an add topping function in here. Okay, now let me take a look at this. Build pizza, check toppings, and maybe that works okay. Okay, add top. You need this function here, mypizza.addTopping. Okay, to get that into your pizza object, so your pizza object has all its toppings. We're not really told to do that. It's not mentioned, but the pizza object itself, right here, needs this function. This dot add topping, this dot toppings. You've got a toppings variable or a toppings property right here, and you've got to be able to add a single topping to it, which is the T. Which that T right there, when you call this function add topping from down here in the build pizza function, right here, new topping, add topping. Okay, and you're sending a my topping through. Now this will be whatever the user checks. As they check it, it's gonna select everything that's not a none. So whether it's pepperoni or chicken or green peppers, it's going to, if it's not marked as none, it will send that topping and to this function and add it so that the pizza object has a full list of all its toppings that it's supposed to have, and it happens right there. That T comes in, my topping, and it gets added to the toppings array right there. Okay, so this is never told to you in the instructions that I could find, and I may have overlooked it, but I don't think it ever told you to add this. You have to have it. You have to have it to make this work. So I think this is a little confusing. There's 2 or 3 mistakes, I think, in the instructions. Just want to make sure it's pretty clear to you. Okay. One other thing that I thought was, I can't remember if they included it or not. I think I have it in my notes to make sure to mention it, so that it may not have included this in the original code that it gives you initially, but in your draw pizza, you need this. You need this if statement. If you don't have this if statement, it's going to grab every topping, and it's going to put it in there, even the ones that are not checked, and it's going to say none. If you don't order, let's see what some of these toppings are. If you don't want one with sausage, and you don't want ham, and you don't want onions, it's still going to list them, and it'll list them over here, but in the parentheses it'll give a none. Okay, that's not what we want. The user does not want to be told what they didn't order. They want to be told what they ordered. So it's pretty important. I think they've left this out of the instructions. I think they don't tell you to put it in, I don't think, and they don't include this in the actual original code. But you're going to have to, for this draw pizza, which is used to do the graphic, but it's also used to get this list, checked toppings that you need. Okay, because it's used right here, checked toppings. See, okay, so okay, it's let me see where that might happen. I'm not sure where that gets pushed out to where it can be used down here, but at any rate, it looks like the same array. You need to include this if statement to wrap around this section of code right here, where it's creating a list of all the toppings, and you can see you have to put the opening curly bracket and the closing curly bracket around that list of code. You don't want this group of code lines right here to include every single topping, whether it's not checked or whether it's checked. Whether it's listed as none or whether it's listed as actually being on the pizza. You don't want it to get every single topping. You just want it to get the ones that are actually checked to be on the pizza. Okay, so you've got to have the if statement. It cannot be a none. Okay, so that is kind of important, I think. It's in the draw pizza function. Okay, I know this is a lot. I just noticed these things, though. I think there was about 3 mistakes in the instructions for this. You need the add 2 toppings function up there right here. You need that function in the pizza class or the pizza constructor. You need you need to get you need to call the property IDs correctly in order to get the crust and the size, and that's done down here, I think in the let me see, where did that go? I think that's actually in the pizza. Maybe when you're doing the summary, you've got to get these right. This dot, is that where I got it? I don't know that that's it exactly. ID pizza crust. We got that maybe from the build pizza, maybe. Yeah, right there. Okay, so pizza size is supposed to be equal to pizza size value, and the my pizza crust property in the pizza is supposed to be equal to pizza crust value. Okay, so these in the instructions are listed as if they were pizza size box and pizza crust box. They're not boxes. They're drop-down menus, and they're only listed in the IDs as pizza crust and pizza size. Okay, and they are associated with these things right here. Okay. Okay, so and then the third mistake, I think there's 3 of them. The third mistake is to make sure to put this it's in the JavaScript file. Make sure to put, they're all in the JavaScript file. Make sure in the draw pizza that you put this if statement in. Okay, and that's going to constitute, you've got a condition right there that opens a curly bracket. You nest these other statements, these 4 statements right here. In that condition, you have to close the curly bracket right there. If you forget to close it, it's going to mess it up. Okay, so that's quite a bit of stuff. One more thing, I think those are the 3 mistakes that are in here. Okay, one more thing in the instructions. One more thing that I will mention when you're doing when you're creating your summary. Okay, make sure that you put this space in right here as a comma. Now that comma is going to show up after the size and the crust. It'll show up a comma. Okay, and then after every topping that you add, because this is going through a loop through all the toppings that are actually checked, and it's going to add this comma and a space after every topping that you add. Okay, that space is useful because without it, if you don't have it, this output, this summarized output right here of what the pizza is, and let's just do a new one real quick. Okay. And let's add a whole lot of toppings to this, okay? Let's just add a lot of stuff. And click Add to Cart. Now, if you don't have that comma right there, okay, this is going to run off. And this is the way sometimes a div will work. If it's got text in it, the box will stay the same size. It'll sit there. That light yellow box will be there, but the text will flow right out of it. Okay, the way that they've got the CSS set up, it's going to flow right out of it if you don't have that space right there. That space after the commas gives a break where the div, the text in the div can go ahead and wrap. It knows then when it's got a space that it can wrap down underneath the the previous line. It'll put another line underneath and another line underneath, as opposed to this text running off outside the box. It'll run off outside here if you don't have those spaces. So it's kind of an issue to make sure you have a space right there. This is just a concatenation thing, but you know what? It's formatting, and the user sees it. It's part of the user interface. You want you can't get away from the user interface. When you're talking about JavaScript, we're talking about web pages. It's got a user interface almost always with the kind of things that we do, and you want to make sure that that interface is real clear and real easy to work with, because the user has to be able to use it to get the program to do what you've made it to do. Okay, so that's kind of a long video. I'm sorry, 30 minutes, but that will, I think, help get you through the project. If you have questions, you can email me. I hope this helps. I know it took a long time. I will give this time. I'm probably just not gonna mark this one late at all. Just if you just get it in, that's great for the semester. Okay. I know we're gonna run into I think we've got 4 more projects. I think there's a dozen on here. I'm not 100% sure about that, but at any rate, we'll keep plugging away, and I may be wrong. There may be just 10, but at any rate, there's still things to do. We've got a final, we've got quizzes for all this stuff. So let's just keep going, and if you can get this one turned in, that's great. I'll count it at a full score if you get it turned in and it's perfect. Okay, and it works good, and let's just keep working on week to week. I think we're on project 9 this week that'll be due on Sunday night. Okay, thank you very much.